Hey everybody, welcome to episode 157 of Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. I did a 1-minute video today, Chris, on study coordinators. Bitcoin is at $7,600, by the way.
Yeah, it's the same as it's been for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, so my video was on homegrown coordinators. Okay, so this is what this podcast is going to be about. One of our clients, we know her very well. Okay?
Okay.
Like, she's cool.
Okay.
We know her.
Have we met her in person?
Yes.
Okay.
Here.
I still don't know who this is. I'm trying to figure it out as you go.
Yes. She hired an experienced coordinator. She's a CRA.
Okay.
She's opening up a site. She did about 8 months ago, maybe a year ago. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Because she's a full-time CRA also.
Oh, okay.
She hired a full-time coordinator.
I know what you're talking about.
To run an experienced coordinator to run the site while she's away, which makes sense, right?
Sure.
The problem is when you're not managing full-time, experienced or not, you have no oversight. As far as, I'm not talking about PI oversight. I'm talking about you as the business owner making sure your employees are doing what they're supposed to be doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this experienced coordinator didn't know how to do simple things. Apparently the ball was dropped on a couple of things. The monitors got upset. This lady she was going to let her go, but the person resigned. So the topic came up of how do I find, coordinators, and she suggested it herself. I'm thinking the best way is to just bring them in and develop them on your own. Mm-hmm. Either as medical assistants or just promising candidates like Carlos here, who I did the video with earlier. I did a 1-minute video with him for LinkedIn. Bring in promising potential.
Sure.
And train them yourself on being a coordinator.
Sure.
That is, in my opinion, the best way to bring on another coordinator to your clinic. The problem is it's the most difficult way because it requires you to be there full time initially.
So they offer...
You can't just bring someone with no experience and then not be there, but expect them to kind of figure things out as they go.
So they offer, I believe, degrees now at some universities in research. Mm-hmm. Clinical research, right? Mm-hmm. What about hiring somebody fresh out of school? And they haven't worked for anybody yet, but they have a very good fundamental understanding of research. What about hiring somebody like that? So
I'm very optimistic. I think that anything can work with the right manager, with the right owner.
Sure. What I'm more implying here is, would that make things easier than hiring like an MA that has no research background, but can do vitals, draw blood, that kind of thing? Which one would you prefer?
Well, obviously the one who has just even an academic understanding of research would be better. Not only are their credentials better, but you don't have to necessarily teach the fundamentals.
Right.
But you're also not paying the same.
Sure, you're paying more for the...
Right?
For the grad, most likely.
You're paying a lot more for the grad, and when the rubber meets the road with either one of those candidates, you're still going to have to get in the trenches and do the work with them and train them and develop them.
Sure.
Right? So this person's dilemma was they don't have time to manage the site, but they also need somebody to run their clinic, which is a catch-22. In my opinion, the best way to do it, first of all, the cheapest way to do it, is to develop the talent yourself. And it's also the best way because you're teaching somebody how you want your clinic run. You don't want somebody coming in from another clinic and having you, or running the studies the way they did it at their other clinic. Because what if their other clinic wasn't good? Right? Yeah, bringing bad habits. But there's a flip side to that coin too. Maybe they're bringing good ideas from the other clinic.
Or good habits.
So I'm of the opinion that any candidate would work. It's really up to the owner and the manager. Now, this is why this is a good podcast topic. Because there's multiple options and alternatives, and what may have worked well once may not work well again, depending on the candidate, right? And maybe the manager or the site owner has less time the second time around than they did the first time around, or less patience. So what do you think, Chris? What's the best way to get a coordinator? Because in theory, you should be able to get an experienced coordinator, have them come in. You're paying them a lot. She was paying this person a lot. They should be able to run the trials on their own, right? Well, it was proven in this case and many other cases that that's not how it works. Because when there's no supervision, some employees tend to not do their job.
Sure, and there's other concerns there as well. So, not all sites, because in this particular instance, the coordinator needs to be able to handle all aspects of research, right? They need to be able to see the patients. They need to be able to handle regulatory. They may need to have to schedule patients. They may need to screen new patients and schedule those. And at a lot of companies, they delegate those tasks to different individuals. It's not all handled by the coordinator. So that's a concern there too, is hiring an experienced coordinator. Yeah, sure, maybe they're experienced at just one aspect, but not every possible aspect of research.
Right.
Maybe they have no clue what to do with regulatory, because a lot of times there's a particular individual that handles just regulatory.
Right.
Or other aspects of research as well. So that's a concern too. So you need to, interview well. Right? You need to find out, can they handle all of these different aspects? Aside from just not doing their job, right? Maybe they don't know how to do these things.
Right. Or maybe they, and you're right, because at some clinics, an experienced coordinator, I just talked to one yesterday, and they've been doing studies for 8 years at a clinic, but it was a big clinic, so they were a coordinator. They didn't do any regulatory because they had somebody else doing regulatory. Right. So when they go somewhere else,
I have no clue.
But they're interviewing like they're an experienced coordinator.
Yeah, and they will come off that way too, unless you ask the right question.
And then you give them a simple task of, hey, do this startup regulatory for me.
Right, do the 1572. Well, what's that? I'm sure they know what a 1572 is,
too.
But they may not know what exactly or how to fill it out.
They may not understand all the nuances of maintaining a reg binder.
Right.
Like trading logs and all that stuff.
Sure.
Although you would hope they would. So there's never a perfect solution, I don't think. And there's pros and cons to hiring an experienced coordinator. Obviously, the con there is you have to pay them more. For a startup site, that may not be the best option financially. And it may not even be the best option practically, as in the case with our friend. Right? I've hired both research naive and experienced coordinators at our various different clinics where I was day-to-day managing.
Right.
Okay? I prefer, if I'm going to be dedicated to managing the site day by day, which now I'm no longer able to do this. Now we have Monica doing that at Global. We have you doing that here. I prefer research naive.
Well,
Number one, it saves me money and it allows me to find the best talent potential. So I got to rely on instinct to find that potential.
Sure.
And then you groom them, and I've had great coordinators that way. Remember Min? Casey? Jane?
Never met Jane.
Vasti?
Never met Boston.
They were all very good coordinators, and they were all research naive.
Well, let's go back to Monica for a moment. So, in terms of if you're managing on-site day-to-day, which really neither of us do, right?
Right, but when I made these hiring decisions, I was.
But Monica's a good example because when she was hired, neither of us were managing sites on a day-to-day basis, really. But we both are available for anything that is of concern or don't understand or how do I do this. So that's one way to tackle this, right? And somebody who's even busy can always be available by phone. You would.
But Monica learned under 2 experienced coordinators.
Not really.
She did learn.
Not really. They didn't really teach her much. At least that's what she told me.
Okay. Yeah. And she somehow figured it out.
Well, because she can call us with questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure you get questions from her. I know I do.
Oh, I still do. Then it's like 2 years of her being a coordinator.
And so do I. So my point is I think Monica's a good example. I think you hire somebody
with potential
who will look out for your best interest as the owner, which Monica definitely does.
Yeah.
And she understands that it's a business and we're here to make money and certain things need to be done. You have to see patients, you have to screen patients, you have to recruit patients.
And I also think that you've got to be self-aware of what kind of site you have. So if it's a brand new site, the goal is to get somebody to be a good coordinator. Doesn't matter from where or how, whether they're already experienced or whether you're going to develop them to be experienced. Get that first solid coordinator that you can bank on, and then start bringing in fresh talent. Now, if you're in a big site or a medium to big size site, and it's just a numbers game, like you just need bodies to man all the studies you're getting, which some of our clinics are getting to that point, then you go for the best available candidate at that time, whether they're experienced or whether they're not, right? Sure. But you have the luxury, once you have that like foundation in place, you have the luxury of bringing in and having like a farm system like they do in baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking the same thing. I mean, the new individual, you give them the time-consuming, easy tasks, right? Data entry or creating source or whatever's time-consuming. And the things that are more sensitive, right? Maybe answering queries or any other number of topics. Then you have the more experienced coordinators handling those things.
Yeah. Like baseball is a good analogy. Like you can sign the big free agent. That's like getting a coordinator that's experienced, right? Paying them a lot of money. But then you also want to develop your farm system.
Yeah, new talent.
Right? And that's what the Oakland A's were able to do when they were good, playing money ball.
Sure.
They didn't, as a matter of fact, they didn't sign any big free agents.
Yeah.
They did it all in-house. But this is why the Yankees are constantly the best organization in baseball, because they get the big name free agents and they have an excellent farm system.
Sure.
Right? So I think if your clinic is at that size where you can afford a really promising experienced study coordinator and develop a farm system, it's best. But a lot of our audience are brand new clinics. They don't have this luxury. It's like being an expansion team. Like you just gotta find whatever's available out there and figure it out. It really boils down to the business owner in those first 2 years, which is why we always recommend these site owners to do the coordinating themselves for the first year, if you can. Right?
Sure.
So what do you think if you were a brand new site right now? Let's say we were not partnered. You didn't know who I was. You're a brand new site. Let's say you're a CRA, okay, and you want to open a site. What do? You can't quit your job.
Sure. So I kind of already alluded to this. I think I hire somebody like Monica, somebody who is mature in terms of they understand what their position is here, right? Really, you want somebody to protect your interests, right? You own a business. You need somebody to protect your interests, somebody that's going to work hard for you, right? And not just because you're not around, they're not going to take the day off. Right.
So professional.
Right. So you need to hire somebody like that.
But how do you assess that in an interview?
Difficult, right? It's difficult.
It's gambling, really.
Well, and your gut can be wrong, but I think your gut oftentimes tells you.
Trust your gut. Yeah, that's a good. If your gut is good, some people's guts are horrible.
Well, I think if you have nothing else to go on, then you trust your gut, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you can do,
right?
Is this person going to protect my interests?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. When I'm out of town, will they... And I mean, you can put certain safeguards in place to make sure they show up. Right?
Yeah, like Sam Walton, the Walmart guy.
Yeah.
He would call like at random times of the day to make sure people are answering.
You can even go another route, right? You can
if the day's over at 5, he would call at 4:59 and see if someone answers.
There's alarm systems that you can put in and they're not that expensive. You can put cameras. Alarm systems will tell you what time it's logged in, right? What time the alarm shut off and what time it's turned back on. I mean, there's things you can do you can have them punch into a time clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing to say they're not punching into the time clock and then going having a 6
I don't
hour
think
lunch.
anyone does time clocks anymore.
Yeah, you can do it on one on an app, sure.
Okay.
But who's to say they're not just coming in, doing it, and then going and having a 6 hour lunch? But I mean, or you can call, like you said. But hire the right person, so you hopefully don't have to worry about this.
So you would go research naive.
Or they could have experience too, but I think that's your number one priority. More so than...
What if money's not an issue for you?
But you still don't have... But I'm still in a position where I can't be there.
Right.
Or
money's not an issue because you're a CRA, so you're earning a lot, and you can allocate almost an unlimited budget to your staff. Obviously, you're not going to just throw money at 10 coordinators when you don't need only one, right? But...
So in that situation, it's probably easier to hire somebody with experience, right? Hire somebody with experience, but again, somebody that you would trust to do their job when you're not around. Because...
Right. But what if they bring... Because it's also a gamble. Like, what if they're experienced, but they come from a site where they cut corners, or they're like a bad site?
Here's the problem, right? If you hire somebody that's completely research naive, and you're not there but maybe 1 day a week, right? They're going to be seeing patients, and they're most likely going to be making a lot of mistakes, regardless if they can reach you at any time of day on the phone.
Right.
Right? Because they're not going to be aware of the mistakes they're making because they're completely research naive.
And people might be listening now and thinking, this is irrelevant, guys, because the PI is in charge of everything. What do you tell them? You're laughing. What do you tell? Because there are people listening thinking this right now.
Sure, and everybody that has experience in this business knows that the PI at most is responsible. I mean, while they're completely responsible for the study, really at best, they're responsible for 10% of the work on the study. At best. Right?
Even the good ones, like that have oversight?
Yeah, I'm saying they do everything as they should, but really they're only doing 10% of the work, right? So you're trusting 90% of the work with somebody who has no clue.
Right.
So, but if money were not a concern, I would still probably hire the best. I think the priority is protecting my interests. That would be number one. If it were equal, I trust these two people equally. One has experience, one does not. I hire the one with experience.
Yeah. Here's, and I don't think there is a right or wrong here. I think it's...
If money's not a concern.
If money is or is not a concern, I think there's so many ways you can be successful or fail. My strategy as a site owner is just get somebody up to speed on being a coordinator and running the site, at least from the operations.
But the scenario you gave me was I can only be on site 1 day a week. That's not enough time to train somebody.
Right.
We're going to see 5 patients a week.
Yeah.
That's not enough time to train them and get them up to speed.
Tough. It is extremely tough.
At 1 day a week.
What I would do is probably hire a full-time coordinator. Because, see, you're not going to be able to get the experienced coordinator as a part-time employee. Especially not in a market like this, 2018.
No, that's not true. We own a site in which there was a part-time coordinator. Is a part-time coordinator. We just talked to her an hour ago with experience.
Yeah. So if the site owner is not able to be on site as that much, obviously if the site owner is available to be hands-on.
And this is actually a very similar situation to the CRA.
Yeah.
The situation at that site.
Yes, it is. It is. So if you're the site owner and you are able to be on site full time, I think, and you know research, I think it's best for you to bring in research naive. It's easier on your pockets, okay? Sure. And you can mold this person to be like your clone, pretty much. That's the goal of any business owner, is to scale, to remove yourself from the picture so that the business runs
as if you were
whether you're involved or not.
Sure.
Right? So if you are able to, as a site owner, be on site full time, bring in someone research naive. If you're not, let's say you can only go 1 day a week, because a lot of our clients are CRAs that can't quit their job, you bring in you try to get an experienced part-time coordinator that comes in 3 days a week when patients are there, and you bring in a full-time research naive person. If possible, get them to intern for 3 months for free.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they learn from this experienced coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can, if the site proves to be successful, both of them can get paid full time. Because
Sure.
you're going to need 2 coordinators,
Yep.
right?
Sure.
And then you're not dependent on any one person.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the best way to go about it. It's tough, though. It's tough to get an experienced coordinator willing to work part-time.
Mm-hmm.
And really dedicate and treat the business like it's theirs when they're part-time.
Sure.
And they're working somewhere else, too.
No, I would agree.
Right? So then do you hire this experienced coordinator full-time and bring on an intern? I would say yes.
If money's not a concern.
Or even if it is.
Experienced coordinators are fairly expensive to a new business.
Certainly 60K at least, right?
Certainly if money's a concern.
If money's a concern, you still do it, and then you bring in the intern, and then you hope that within 6 months you start screening patients for your study.
But, okay, well, let's deal with the reality here for a moment. How many new clients do we take on that can't afford to pay us for more than 3 months?
Like 25% of them.
Right. So they have basically, 3 months worth of not revenue, but funding.
But those clients, none of those clients are CRAs. Interestingly enough.
True, but you're speaking to just a general audience, just not CRAs.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, in terms of if funding's a concern, you typically don't, in the sense of you have very limited funding for your company, you're probably not going to want to bring on a experienced research coordinator. Really, I mean, not to plug one of our, or maybe to plug one of our our businesses. I would, in that situation, much rather spend $3,000 on our CRA Academy to teach the fundamentals to a research naive individual. If you have very limited funding.
Yeah, this is tricky, and I knew this would be a good topic because there is no cookie cutter answer.
No, you have to consider all of your specifics.
You have to improvise.
You
have to be lucky as well.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be lucky not just that the studies that you're going to get studies and that they're going to start relatively quickly, but that you end up with the right candidates to be your coordinators. Right? It's tough. It's not easy, and this is why 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years.
No, it's 80% the first 2.
Okay, because in the first 5 years it's like 90.
Well, once you supposedly make it by past 2 years, you're usually safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure there's a business here or there that only makes it for 3 years, but it's the 2 years that's the cutoff.
Yeah, interesting. So really, there is no, hate to ruin your guys' expectations, but there is no answer to this question.
Well, there is, but it has to work for you. I mean, you have to.
There you go.
You have to think about. You have to take into consideration everything that's specific to your situation, and consider those things when you move forward.
If you, the site owner, the business director, the site director, the site owner, can work full time, I think it becomes easy. I think you bring in, provided you know something about research, you bring in someone that's research naive.
Sure.
And you groom them. And then you bring in other people. And then if you grow, you bring in experienced coordinators.
Sure.
If you don't have that time or knowledge, let's say you have the time but not the knowledge, I think you have to bring in an experienced.
Well, you don't have to. We have
CRA Academy. Site Owner Academy.
We have a number of research naive sites that both the owner and the coordinator were naive. Now, to be fair, I think only a few of those, I would say that 80% is very realistic there. I only think 20% of those will succeed.
Yeah.
But, that could be just due to all the other reasons that 80% fail, right?
Right.
Lack of funding. A lot of those businesses will fail just as they're about to be successful, but they run out of funding. I think the most crucial point here is be well funded when you start your company. Really. You can't start a company with $10,000. I mean, you can.
You can if you're doing all the work.
You can, but you're at risk.
You can if you're doing all the work. See, that's what makes these topics so tough, because there's just so many different solutions.
Sure. Well, I shouldn't say...
But there are many more ways to fail than there are ways to succeed when it comes to a clinical research startup.
Oh, absolutely. And I should rephrase what I just said. So if I only had $10,000, I would feel uncomfortable, but I would start a company, right? A research company. I would feel that I could do it, right? But I would be uncomfortable.
You would use all the strategies that we suggest. Find a PI, use their office, pay them on the back end.
Yep, find an experienced coordinator that I would have intern for a couple months.
Yes.
And not pay them a dime, right?
Yeah, and you have to be a good salesman, which is why we come back to the topic.
Yeah, be a good salesman. You're always selling.
Everything is sales when you're a business owner.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Right? So it really boils down to know who you are, figure out how much time you can dedicate, figure out what your budget is, and then mix and match until you figure out the formula. Mm-hmm. Or you don't, and you're going to go out of business. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
But there is a place for everyone, for research naive and for experienced, into this equation.
And if you happen to be listening and thinking of starting a research company, you can always reach out to Dan. He gives his phone number out liberally, and we'll both be more than happy to have a phone call with you to discuss this.
I've only blocked a dozen numbers.
That's it?
That's it. Surprising.
Yeah.
Only a dozen.
So, yeah, I mean...
949-415-6256. Site Owner Academy, our best product, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's Dan's opinion, not mine.
Not Chris's. CRA Academy, our best product, in Chris's opinion.
Yeah.
Our month-to-month consulting services.
Could be our best product, too.
Our best product in both of our opinions. Podcast, YouTube, our best product. This is our best product.
It's free.
It's free. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone else, for listening, watching. We'll catch y'all later. Bye-bye.